The year is 2149. Earth is unrecognizable. The once blue sky is now a blanket of ash. Only 1% of humanity has survived, locked away in underground modules controlled by the government. In this shattered world, we meet Aaron, a young man confined in a bunker. His only connection to the outside world? A computer that promises answers but delivers only silence. What would it be like to spend almost a decade imprisoned, waiting for someone who may never return? How would it feel to know the air outside is toxic, yet still dream of escape? These are the questions Aaron faces every day, until something unexpected happens. A total blackout. In that moment, he realizes that waiting may no longer be an option. Aaron is about to make a decision that will change everything. The walls of the bunker, once a symbol of safety, now seemed oppressive, almost alive. Every speck of dust floating in the heavy air felt like a conspirator, moving against Aaron. The blackout was not just a technical failure, it was an omen. The absolute silence filled the space like a pulsating entity, and the flickering shadows from the emergency lights moved in ways that defied logic. The computer screen, his only window to a world he had not seen in years, flickered one last time before going completely dark, leaving him alone with his own vulnerability. The usual warning frequencies were absent, replaced by an eerie stillness, as if the bunker itself was trying to whisper long-forgotten secrets. Then, a distant noise broke the silence, a faint, almost imperceptible crack, yet disturbingly real. Aaron knew the air outside was a death sentence, or so the government had always claimed, but there was something worse than death. Uncertainty. Days stretched on without responses, without light, with food supplies dwindling. The oxygen reserves showed an inexplicable drop. His own breathing echoed like a drum, heralding the end. In the growing darkness, Aaron noticed something unusual, a movement captured by the surveillance camera of the external tractor. It was a shadow, not that of a machine, nor any creature Aaron recognized from his virtual encyclopedias. It slithered as if the Earth itself had birthed an abomination to reclaim its place. He blinked, and the shadow was gone. The monitor returned to darkness, but the image remained seared into his mind like a fiery brand. Driven by desperation and the uneasy feeling that the bunker was no longer safe, Aaron resolved to break every rule. He donned the respirator like ceremonial armor, knowing that opening the door was not merely an act of survival, but a pact with the unknown. When the gate's mechanisms finally yielded to his manual effort, air rushed into the bunker. Not the lethal miasma he had imagined, but a surprisingly fresh breath, carrying an air of promises. And then he saw it. Not the desolate sky he feared, but a deep gray firmament, where twisted clouds formed patterns no human mind should comprehend. The earth around him pulsed with life, but not the life he had known. It was a grotesque vitality, vibrating with an alien logic. Aaron inhaled deeply and, to his surprise, found he could breathe the unfiltered air. Yet, relief eluded him. Instead, an anxiety as visceral as it was inexplicable gripped him. Something was watching. He knew it with certainty. Aaron took his first steps outside the bunker, ignoring the ancient voice in his mind screaming at him to return. He did not yet realize that every step carried him deeper into the realm of forces that cared nothing for human logic, or his fragile sanity. The air, though breathable, carried a weight that transcended mere density. Aaron felt the atmosphere pressing against him, as if each molecule were an invisible sentinel scrutinizing his every move. The landscape, bathed in a pale and distant sunlight, revealed contours that defied conventional geometry. Trees twisted at impossible angles, casting shadows that disobeyed the light. Mounds of earth pulsed with a cadence that resembled the beating of a heart beneath his feet. Walking became an act of doubt. Each step brought forth unnatural sounds, dry cracks, incomprehensible murmurs, and the distant scraping of something moving with an unknown purpose. Reaching a low rise, Aaron finally saw the horizon, a tenuous line where the ruins of civilization jutted upward like broken teeth against the gray sky. But his attention was drawn to something alien among the decay. In the center of a clearing stood a metallic structure, shining in stark contrast to the muted light. It was a terminal, similar to those he had used in the bunker to access information and send messages. But this one seemed alive, pulsating as if fed by a digital bloodstream coursing through its core. Approaching it, Aaron noticed symbols etched along its surface. They were not in any recognizable language, but took the form of archaic shapes that appeared to shift whenever he looked away. A low hum emanated from the machine, growing in intensity until it became a melody of dissonance. Against his will, Aaron felt his hands move toward the panel, his fingers brushing the unnaturally smooth, cold surface. The machine reacted instantly. A blinding flash enveloped Aaron, followed by a cascade of images that could not be real. Visions of colossal creatures crawling across impossible plains, cities constructed by hands that were not human, and hooded figures standing motionless, their eyes glowing with a soul-consuming light. When the light faded, Aaron found himself on his knees. He felt a burning sensation, not physical, but as if his very essence had been marked by something indescribable. Then he heard it, a voice, neither human nor mechanical, but something resonating in frequencies beyond normal comprehension. You walk among the remnants of what was never yours, return to safety, or be consumed. Aaron tried to respond, but his voice was powerless against the magnitude of the presence. The message was not a threat, but a warning. He felt a pull deep within, as if reality itself was urging him to return to the bunker. But something in Aaron resisted, something that knew he could never return. Not after what he had seen. Not after realizing the world outside was not just ravaged by chemical warfare, but ruled by forces beyond comprehension. Hesitant but resolute, he moved away from the machine, fully aware that in defying the warning, he had made an unspoken pact with an incomprehensible terror. The twilight descended with unnerving speed, as though time itself had become warped by unseen forces. Aaron walked toward a grove where the trees resembled blackened bones, casting shadows that seemed to move with their own will. Each step through the heavy air brought him closer to murmurs, whispers in languages his mind could not decode, but that his instincts understood as warnings of despair. In the distance, a familiar sound reached him, the bark of a dog, a sound that should have brought comfort, but instead felt like a cruel mockery in this alien wasteland. Following the sound, Aaron found something that didn't belong, a trail of human footprints cutting through the scorched earth, fresh, deliberate. Hopeful or treacherous, he couldn't tell, but it was his only option. The trail offered the illusion of logic in an otherwise chaotic world. Hours of wandering led him to the edge of a greener forest, a startling anomaly amid the desolation. The dense vegetation exuded a scent that wasn't natural, but almost synthetic, chemical. Tiny lights flickered among the branches like eyes watching him, always just beyond his direct gaze. He struggled to rationalize the sights, but his exhausted mind failed to withstand the weight of it all. There, on the forest's edge, he saw the dog. It was thin, with unkempt fur, and eyes that reflected more than mere animal instinct. It stared at him for a long moment before turning, as if beckoning him to follow. Reluctantly, Aaron obeyed, for in this senseless vastness, any direction was better than stillness. The path led to a clearing where a small camp lay disturbingly quiet, a brief reprieve in the growing tension. In the center burned a pale flame that emitted no heat, only a fragile light. Beside it sat a young woman with a face hardened by survival. She raised her gaze, and for a moment, the world itself seemed to hold its breath. "I'm Sira," she said, her voice a blend of relief and caution. Sira explained that the forest was no sanctuary, but a zone where government experiments, or something far worse, had gone awry. Survivors were hunted, not by machines or soldiers, but by creatures born of human folly. The drones, she said, were not mere watchers, but tools of something ancient, entities that predated humanity. She pointed to the night sky, where an unfamiliar constellation gleamed unnaturally bright. "They're always there," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Watching, waiting, every choice we make feeds them. Some are taken, others remain, but we all serve them in the end." Aaron felt a cold realization settle over him. The world he had left behind was not merely ruined, it was a stage, and the actors, himself included, danced to a melody only the watchers understood. Sira's eyes were solemn. "You have something they want. That's why you're still alive. The question is, for how long?" The forest's darkness swallowed the last remnants of light, leaving only the campfire's ghostly glow. Aaron and Sira sat in silence, knowing, This fragile moment of respite would not last. The dog remained on the edge of the clearing, its eyes glowing like embers, ever watchful. Aaron tried to make sense of Sierra's revelations, but a deep guttural noise echoed through the forest, a sound like distant thunder emanating from the ground itself. The trees swayed unnaturally, bending toward the sound's source. Sierra stood abruptly, her face pale. "They know we're here," she whispered. "If we stay, there won't be a dawn." Without hesitation, she grabbed a makeshift torch and began to move. The dog led the way, navigating the forest with uncanny precision, as if it knew every twist and trap. Aaron followed, his fear mounting with every step. The oppressive presence in the air grew stronger, as though an invisible force was bending reality itself. At last, they reached a clearing dominated by a massive monolith of black stone. Its surface was smooth like glass, but pulsed with an almost organic energy. Faint blue cracks lined its edges, glowing softly. "This is the portal," Sierra said, urgency lacing her voice. "They built it, but even they don't control what lies beyond." Aaron stared, both terrified and mesmerized. He instinctively understood that this place held the answers he sought, answers about his survival, the creatures hunting him, and the fate of the world. But stepping through it meant leaving behind everything he knew, venturing into a realm that obeyed no earthly rules. A metallic whirring broke the silence. Drones. Their glowing red eyes pierced the mist, closing in fast. Sierra grabbed Aaron's arm. "You must choose now. Staying means death. Crossing." She trailed off, unable to finish. Her expression told him all he needed to know. Crossing was a fate worse than death. Aaron turned to the monolith, its energy vibrating through his body. He thought of his mother and the promise he had made to find her. But more than that, he thought of the future, a future that seemed irretrievably lost, yet demanded his decision. With a final glance at Sierra, he stepped forward, the ground beneath him pulsing like a living heartbeat. The portal responded immediately, emitting a piercing sound that seemed to split his soul. Blue light engulfed him, and for a moment, everything disappeared. The forest, the drones, even his own awareness. He was consumed by an infinite void, where time and space ceased to exist. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer in the clearing. The ground beneath him was cold stone, and the sky above was a starry abyss with unfamiliar constellations. Towering figures loomed before him, their forms defying earthly logic, their silhouettes fragmenting reality itself. They observed him with glowing eyes, ancient and consuming. Aaron felt his mind unravel as they probed the essence of his being, reading not just his thoughts but the very core of his existence. He tried to scream, but his voice was insignificant before their immense presence. They didn't speak, but conveyed thoughts directly into his mind, echoes of long-lost eras, of worlds that had risen and fallen before humanity's dawn. "You chose the unknown," their collective voice resonated. "Now, you are part of the whole." Aaron collapsed to his knees, his vision blurring as he understood their message. He was no longer just Aaron. Something had been implanted in him, or perhaps awakened. He was a vessel, a bearer of something beyond human comprehension. His journey had never been about freedom. It had always been about purpose, a purpose he couldn't yet fathom. As his surroundings disintegrated, Aaron realized he was being returned, not to his world, but to one irreversibly changed. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in the forest. The clearing and the monolith were gone. Only Sierra and the dog remained, watching him with expressions of both relief and fear. "You came back," Sierra said. Though her voice carried the weight of knowing, the Aaron who returned was not the same one who had left. Aaron didn't respond. He gazed at the sky, where the stars now seemed aligned in patterns only he could understand. Something within him had shifted, something that didn't belong to this world. Without a word, he turned and walked away, leaving Sierra and the dog behind, heading toward the unknown, carrying a secret that would change everything.